afternoon from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones with your what has become a regular 2 p.m. update on the tropical disturbance that we've been following for the last couple of days. Now, the center of circulation, if you want to call it that, it's not really that much of a well-defined center. But if you want to call it that, it is now moving inland across parts of southeast Louisiana this afternoon, and it is dropping quite a bit of rainfall across parts of southeast and south central Louisiana. Over the last few hours, in fact, a few areas across parts of St. Martin and St. Mary Parish have already picked up close to 8 inches of rain, and in some places a little bit over 8 inches of rain. That's the reason why we had that flash flood warning that you saw at the top of the screen there that they just saw. I'm going to show you that here visually here in just a second. We'll take a look at the radar before we jump into our briefing, but the bottom line is the rain is now upon us, at least for parts of the area, and that activity will be spreading from east to west. Out of south central Louisiana into southwest Louisiana and even into parts of southeast Texas as we go through the afternoon, evening, and really for the next couple of days. We're going to be looking at pretty good rain chances pretty much the rest of the day today, all day tomorrow, and pretty much all day Saturday before most of this activity gets out of here by Sunday. Let me go ahead and start off here by switching over to the radar view here. Let me see if hopefully the microphone's working here. Let me know if you can't hear me. But the radar here indicating the most of the rainfall is over south central Louisiana. At least if I can put this into motion here, and you can see the flash flood warning there in the bright green box. That is essentially just about all of St. Martin Parish, the northern half of St. Mary Parish, and the extreme eastern half of Iberia Parish. Now, I expect that eventually we're going to have to actually extend this flash flood warning to include other areas. You can see another very strong looking thunderstorm now moving over those areas. These areas, as I said a little while ago, have already seen over 8 inches of rain in a few locations, and we're still looking at heavy rainfall falling. So another couple of inches, even with this storm, is not out of the realm of possibility, and that doesn't count for what's to come as well. So kind of keep that in mind as we're going forward here. That some areas, not everywhere, but south central Louisiana has already seen quite a bit of rainfall and still looking at another 2 solid days or thereabouts of activity to come. You can see there's another large swath of thunderstorm activity moving into parts of St. Landry Parish, upper St. Martin, of Voiles Parish right now. So if you're not seeing rain in those areas, you likely will shortly. And all of this activity is moving from east to west. It's not too common that we see storms moving from east to west across our area. Most of the time, they're moving kind of from northwest to southeast. So they're kind of coming from the opposite direction than what we're typically accustomed to. But this activity will be moving into the Lafayette area here, say by about maybe 3 to 4 p.m., and then continuing to gradually spread west through the early evening hours into southwest Louisiana. I think we are going to be looking at some rain in Lake Charles later on this evening. Same thing up towards, say, the Fort Polk area. I got to figure out what they're calling it now. It's Fort Johnson, then it's Fort Polk, then it's Fort Polk again, I think, for the time being. But that activity will be getting into Alexandria as well. Probably within the next hour or thereabouts. And then some of this, I don't think this activity particularly are going to get into southeast Texas, but we may see some additional development later this evening. I think the majority of the activity, if we're going to see it in southeast Texas, is probably going to happen sometime tomorrow and into Saturday. I don't think we're going to see a huge amount of rain out of in southeast Texas this afternoon and evening, so that's some good news. But that doesn't mean that it's not on the way, so kind of keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and jump into our briefing here. As always, if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section, and I'll be happy to answer them just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. Here is the satellite view of this disturbance here this afternoon. The center of circulation is somewhere right in here. It's very muddled and really not very easy to identify, at least not on the satellite view. It's somewhere right in that area here, just now moving inland within the last few hours across southeast Louisiana. And this whole thing is going to continue to kind of meander to the west. It's not moving very fast, maybe only about, I had to put a number on it, maybe 8 to 10 miles an hour or thereabouts. But you can see the large blob of rain, mainly across south central Louisiana. It's actually removed a little bit from the center of circulation. There is some showers and thunderstorms kind of surrounding that center of circulation in the New Orleans area, But the majority of the activity for the last couple of hours has been across south central Louisiana. Now, the National Hurricane Center has lowered significantly the chances of development. Obviously, with the center of circulation now moving inland, the chances of development, I'm going to say, are virtually zero. But the National Hurricane Center is still giving it about a 10% chance in case it decides to wobble back offshore, but that's pretty unlikely at this point. I don't expect we're going to see any additional development, and that means no wind threat, no surge threat, and no tornado threat. The only threat we're going to be dealing with this system is the potential for heavy rainfall and flash flooding, as we've already seen across parts of the area. Generally speaking, we're going to be looking at most of the region seeing 2 to 4 inches of rain, but as we've already seen across parts of south central Louisiana, much higher amounts are going to be possible. So 10 plus inches in a few locations is not out of the realm of possibility anytime essentially from now through late Saturday. So taking just a little bit closer look, this is the broader view of the satellite imagery. Just we can see this large swath of cloud cover here. A good bit of this rainfall is actually still offshore. So I think that is gradually going to be lifting, especially as we go into tomorrow. That's going to be lifting inland. But right now, what we're getting is, if you want to call it the west side of the storm, there is a band here on the west side that's been moving through south central Louisiana. That's what we've been looking at. You can see there's some additional activity even further to the east across the coastal portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and even into the Florida Panhandle. There's some thunderstorm activity developing. You can see those clouds bubbling up. And that is also associated with this low just on the opposite side. This whole thing is going to be gradually moving to the west, so we're going to get the west side first, and then some of this activity will be moving into our area later on tomorrow and into Saturday. And ultimately, this is going to meet its demise not too far from where it is right now. It's going to move inland a little bit and then gradually just kind of fill in and dissipate right over the top of us. It's not going to move off so much as it's just going to break down and dissipate, and that's why we're going to be dealing with it for the next few days. Looking at kind of our long-range forecast, before I get even more into this, it does look like there's going to be another low-pressure area sometime middle of next week that's going to follow a very similar path, where it's going to develop kind of over this area here, move across the Florida Peninsula, and into the Eastern Gulf again. So we may be dealing with a very similar situation this time next week. Just kind of something to keep in mind as we go forward here. Even though we're going to be looking at this flash flood threat with this, there may very well be another one this time next week. Again, the National Hurricane Center has lowered the probability of development down to about 10%. In reality, it's probably closer to more like 1 to 2%. There's a very low probability of this forming into anything, being as the center of circulation is now essentially inland and is expected to remain there. The only possibility for development would be if it was to wobble kind of back out over the Gulf for some reason and then stay there. That's very unlikely at this point. So not expecting any kind of development. This is not even expected to become a tropical depression at this point. It's just going to be a little area of disturbed weather that we're going to be dealing with here. The flash flood watch has been extended a little bit further to the west. So Calcasieu Parish, Beauregard Parish, and Cameron Parish are now in that flash flood watch, as are Jeff Davis and Allen parishes. This is in addition to the flood watch that we had yesterday. For the potential for some of those bands to kind of set up over the same area for a long period of time. And that's the hard part about when we're talking about rain bands associated with tropical systems, and it doesn't matter whether it's an organized tropical system or not. Those rain bands are usually very narrow, so you get this swath of about maybe 15, 20 miles that it just dumps on for hours and hours and hours, and you wind up with 10, 15, 20 inches of rain. And then, 10 or 20 miles to the west or east of that, you get 1 or 2 inches. So there's a lot of people, I stand up here and I'll say, oh yeah, you might get 10, 15 inches of rain. And then 95% of people that are watching in this area don't see anything close to that. They come back and say, oh, you were wrong. No, but for that swath that did wind up getting it, that was a significant, if not life-threatening situation. But not everybody is going to see that. In fact, relatively few are. It's just going to be a matter of exactly where that heaviest rain sets up. So far today, it's been St. Mary, Lower St. Martin, and Eastern Iberia Parish. I think that's going to kind of shift a little bit into a little bit further west through the rest of Iberia Parish, maybe Vermilion Parish. We'll have to see if there are any other bands that kind of set up. But that's where the heaviest rainfall has been so far. That's kind of point one. Now, there may be others here as we go through the next couple of days, but that's the area of highest risk at the moment. So not everybody in this flash flood watch is going to see flooding conditions, obviously. In fact, I'd say a majority probably won't. But there are going to be some areas within this flash flood watch that are going to see flooding conditions. So remain weather aware. It's not going to be a hurricane. It's not going to be a tropical storm. It's not as sexy as it might otherwise be. It's not getting the dramatic play so much. Although, since we've had recent serious issues with flash flooding in other parts of the country, I do think people are taking this a little more seriously than they would have otherwise. But don't let your guard down just because we're talking about flooding. Flooding kills. The majority of deaths associated with tropical systems, hurricanes or otherwise, are attributed to flooding, either freshwater from rainfall flooding or storm surge flooding. In fact, 3/4, a full 75% of all tropical related deaths are due to flooding of some kind. So this is the killer, much more so than the wind or tornado threat. This is a look at the forecast rainfall totals. I'll get off my soapbox now and stop lecturing at you. So this is generally speaking, this is what we're going to be seeing. Now within this, we are expecting some significantly higher rainfall totals. So I'm going to show you our worst case scenario here in just a second. But generally speaking, we're looking at anywhere between about a 1/2 inch to maybe 2 inches across southeast Texas, between about 2 and 4 inches across western Louisiana. You can see the higher totals, as you might expected to be across southern portions of the state where that center of circulation is going to wind up tracking. And then the highest rainfall total is expected to be across south central Louisiana. So the areas that we're already seeing significant rain today, the 3 to 4 inches, we've already surpassed that. So we're getting closer to their worst case scenario. Sorry about that. We are getting closer to the upper end of their worst case scenario of 10 plus. Being as some of those areas have already seen more than 8 inches. So this is the worst case scenario. You can see that swath of 8 to 10 across south central Louisiana. But notice the little disclaimer there at the bottom. There's a 10% chance that totals will be higher than this. And it's looking like we're going to be pretty close to that 10% chance, if not exceeding it, being as parts of, it's actually a little bit further to the east of Jeanerette at this point. But parts of those areas have already seen 8+ inches of rain. So this may need to be revised upward as we go forward into tomorrow. But generally speaking, the worst case scenario for the majority of the area is going to be 4 to 6 inches, which is certainly still enough to cause some street flooding, especially if it falls in a short period of time. But there are going to be a few areas that are going to see higher than that, 10+ inches. Obviously, we're getting close to that already across parts of St. Martin, St. Mary parishes. And there may be a few other spots as we go through the next couple of days that we'll wind up seeing 10+ inches in a few locations. This is our excessive rainfall outlook. This is essentially the probability of seeing flooding. Obviously, the highest flood risk is across south central Louisiana. The areas highlighted in red there, that's a moderate risk, which means there's a 40 to 70% chance of seeing flooding within 25 miles of any location in that area. The good news is about the highest part of the highest rainfall totals we've seen so far is that most of it has fallen over the Atchafalaya Basin. So, a lot of that is not causing really dramatic flooding right now because the Atchafalaya is absorbing a lot of it. Now we'll have to see if we get some of those other areas that get those high rainfall totals, that are not over a marsh plain. That could be a more serious situation. If the amount of rainfall we've seen so far was falling over a populated area, say Lafayette, New Iberia, Lake Charles, we'd already be dealing with significant life-threatening flash flooding. So we'll see how that goes here going forward. But today and tomorrow are going to be the highest risk for overall flooding. You can see the flood risk is a little bit lower tomorrow, just in terms of because of the coverage and how long we're expected that rainfall to last. But anyway, looking at anywhere between about a 15 to 40% chance of flash flooding within 25 miles of any location across pretty much the entire area. And then going into Saturday, the risk goes down. We're not expecting all-day rain on Saturday. It's going to be mainly kind of morning through we'll call it the mid-afternoon. But the overall risk for flooding is going to be lower on Saturday than it will be today and tomorrow. So just kind of keep that in mind. So this is going to be our last live update regarding this particular disturbance. We may provide another one kind of on an as-needed basis, depending on exactly how the flooding plays out and if I'm available to do so, because if I'm issuing flood warnings, I can't be on here with you fine folks. But should I have that opportunity to do it, then we'll provide another update. But I'm not going to plan one at this point, just because of the uncertainty regarding all of that. Nonetheless, though, if you do have a question, if you're viewing this as a recording, feel free to send me a direct message on Facebook or you see my email address there at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. donald.jones@noaa.gov. So it's my name with a dot in the middle at noaa.gov. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. That way, you can also give us a call. Phone number is also on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, so you can talk to us that way as well. So lots of ways to get in touch with us if we're not live and you do have questions. But in the meantime, while we are live, I'll be happy to answer a few of your questions here right now. So feel free to throw them out there. Diana asked, what will Beaumont be like tomorrow? We're expecting showers and thunderstorms tomorrow in Beaumont. The overall flood risk for the Beaumont area is relatively low compared to the rest of the area. You're not under that flash flood watch. But nonetheless, you are still probably going to be looking at least a couple of inches of rain as we go through the day tomorrow and into Saturday. Marianne says it's raining in Orange County, Texas right now, but just sprinkles so far. We've seen a lot of that across southeast Texas and western Louisiana this morning. It's been very light so far. The heavy rain has been further to the east across south central Louisiana, but that'll be moving in the direction of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana later on today. Terry asks, what will the weather be like Friday during I-10 east from Lake Charles to Gulf Shores? It's going to be rainy, very, very wet, and potentially some flooding. Probably not necessarily flooding on the interstate. The interstate system is usually pretty well elevated from a lot of flooding. But yeah, you're certainly going to be going through rain most of the way, if not the whole way. Pixie Dust says, I'll take the disturbances over a hurricane any day. I agree with you 100%. Let's stick with these little weak systems. I can do this all day. Jennifer asked, what are we looking at as far as thunder and lightning? Do we have an estimate? There are going to be some thunderstorms. Generally, we don't see a huge amount of lightning with tropical air masses kind of like this. Tropical systems tend to be more showers than thunderstorms, but within them, you can have some embedded thunderstorms that can produce a fair amount of lightning. So yeah, I'm not going to say there's not going to be any lightning, because there certainly will be, but it's going to be majority showers. But yes, there will be some lightning embedded within in some of those cells. Sarah says it's been raining here all morning in New Iberia. Yeah, I'm sure it has. We've been watching it. And fortunately, New Iberia, despite the fact that it's been raining all morning, you haven't had quite the rainfall totals that we've seen just to the west across parts of eastern Iberia Parish, over towards, say, the Jeanerette area and points further east, Franklin, Centerville, those areas have seen significantly more rainfall so far. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not about to see more, because if we were looking at the radar a little while ago, those storms are moving from east to west. So that'll be moving. In fact, that cell you're seeing right there, the very strong one that's causing the flooding, will be moving into the New Iberia area here very shortly, if it's not already. So yeah, more to come for you, unfortunately. Jeremy says, U.S. National Weather Service, this is the only hype y'all are getting this season. I would have went live too. Well, first off, no, we don't hype. This is not hype. This is flooding, and people are flooding, so it's probably a pretty good idea to tell them about it. But I'm not going to lie, Jeremy, I'm with you. If this is the only time I have to do this all season, I am just peachy keen okay with that. I would love to not do this. You know, as I know you think, or some people think, not necessarily you, but think that this is somehow, you know, fun and adventure and wonderful, and we just want to get up here and listen to ourselves talk. I would be perfectly happy not doing another one of these the rest of the hurricane season, because if I am, that means that we have a threat to lives and property in this area. Jody asks, is this system going to turn and come back through the area? I've seen other forecasts. That's what's being said. No, we're not expecting that. You know, it may wobble a little bit, but it's not going to get back out into the Gulf and develop into anything. You know, pretty much all of the computer models are in good agreement. It's going to kind of very slowly meander across South Louisiana before eventually dissipating. It looks like either Saturday night or Sunday morning. So no, this is not going to loop-de-loop and come back through as anything. Now, you know, it may meander and loop inland, but it's not going to get back out over the Gulf and re-intensify if that's what you're asking. See, Megan's got it right. As much as I enjoy the briefings, I hope we don't see you very much for the rest of the season. I'd be perfectly happy, you know, catch me on the street, catch me, a lot of people catch me out and about. I'll be happy to talk to you. But yeah, the less we have to do this, the better off we're all going to be. Vanessa says, does it usually flood in Sulphur, Louisiana off of I-10 close to Cracker Barrel? I'm not exact. I can't answer that, you know, very well. I'm sure it has flooded in that area before at various times, but I can't tell you exactly how much rain it would take for it to happen. In the Pretty Pink asked, besides flooding, any wind advisories for Lake Charles? No, there's not going to be any wind really with this system at all. So no wind advisory, no real wind threat. It's really not even going to be that gusty out there. We've only seen winds so far, you know, maybe 5-10 miles an hour. It's just a normal day. So no, we're not expecting any kind of a wind threat with this system. Kale asked, what is happening in Cameron? Like right now? Nothing really. It's not even raining in Cameron at the moment. You can see on the radar there, all of the storm activity is back to the east across Vermilion, Iberia, St. Martin, St. Mary, but there's nothing going on in Cameron at the moment. Claire says there's sporadic, very light rain going on in Lafayette. Yeah, these storms haven't got to you yet, but you can see, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. You know, these storms are approaching Lafayette. You see there it is right in the middle of the screen, and these are some very heavy rain producing storms approaching. So you're going to be looking at some thunderstorms beginning here probably in the next, I'd say maybe 20-30 minutes. So if you have anything that you need to get done outside, better do it and wrap it up quickly, because you are going to be looking at some heavy rain in Lafayette in the next 20 or 30 minutes or so. Amber says, our local meteorologists aren't even really reporting this. They said that just a little rain. Well, first, I am a local meteorologist. We're here in Lake Charles, and we cover Southeast Texas, Southwest, South Central Louisiana, and Central Louisiana. So in a manner of speaking, I'm pretty local to you. As far as not reporting it, no, I'm not buying that. I've been watching social media for days, and they've been doing a pretty good job of reporting, you know, not only what's potentially coming, but the rain that we're going to get. And of course, we've had that flash flood watch up for a couple of days now. It actually went up, I believe, Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday that was actually issued. So no, I disagree with you. I think this has been pretty well reported. Thomas Struge says, I'm doing a great job, thank you. Heavy thunderstorms moving through Walker and Denham Springs, moving quickly towards the west with frequent lightning. Yeah, some of these bigger, I mean, you see the bright reds there, I say bigger. The heavier storms, that's where your lightning probably is. They're going to be embedded in those, because those are actually convective storms. Those are storms that are more than just your common garden variety tropical system. These actually have some height to them. You know, they're breaking up to probably 40, 50,000 feet or thereabouts. So that's, at that level, your rain freezes into ice crystals, which then collide within each other, separating charges, and that's how you get lightning to strike. That's how you get lightning to strike in any thunderstorm, and that's what you're seeing happening there. Juliana asks, is there any tornado potential? No real tornado potential with this. The Storm Prediction Center, which normally issues watches and does the severe weather outlooks, they've indicated no real threat of tornadoes, and we agree with that. We don't expect any kind of a tornado threat with this. It's just mainly going to be rain. There will be some lightning and thunder. That's really going to be the only threats. Jeremy says, my neighbors are boarding up their windows. They are either watching this storm or trying to keep the, oh my God, the smell of meth inside. Thank you for that, Jeremy. Now I've got drug use on my Facebook Live. I'm probably going to get yelled at for that. Don't get me fired, Jeremy. Sarah asked, will y'all be posting a parish by parish of what to expect, wondering what to expect in Jeff Davis Parish? No, we're not going to do that for this. I do that just for, you know, we're talking about a significant tropical event, but this isn't even a named tropical system, so I don't think I'm going to do that. As far as what to expect in Jeff Davis Parish, the main thing is just going to be rain. And I can pull up the forecast rainfall totals for you here. Give me just a moment. Hi. So this is, make this full screen here. This is our forecast rainfall totals. So for Jeff Davis Parish, generally looking at between 2 to 3 inches. But if we wind up getting one of those rain bands set up over you, you could be looking at, on the high end, 4 to 6 inches. That's really the only threat. You know, we're not looking at tornado threat. We're not looking at a storm surge threat, obviously, for Jeff Davis. And we're not looking at any kind of real wind threat. This is mainly just going to be a heavy rain threat. So, you know, up to 6 inches, not out of the realm of possibility, but all in all, that's the only real hazard with this and the potential for flooding. DeMarcus is asking about Calcasieu rain chances. Rain chances are very high, obviously. In fact, we've already seen some drizzle out there, so technically we've reached our 100% rain chances for the day. But most of the activity, you know, we're looking at the radar there. Most of this activity is going to be later on in the afternoon. You can see most of it right now is over just east of the Lafayette area. This is going to be moving in, but it's going to take another couple of hours. So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see anything over here real substantial until probably about maybe 5 o'clock or 5 o'clock this evening. But yeah, rain chances are pretty high because it is coming. Trayvon asks, are there any tornadoes for Southeast Texas? No tornado risk for Southeast Texas. Nicole says it's pouring into boils. Yeah, I believe that. Looking at the radar, that's we had some pretty strong storms up towards Avoyles. Let's see if I can pull this up. Now, this is the Lake Charles radar we're looking at, so this is not exactly where these storms are. But yeah, you can see storms moving through Marksville and southern parts of Avoyles. Those are very heavy, probably lightning-producing thunderstorms with that. Trevon also asked, should we worry about trees falling for wind? No, there's not going to be a wind threat. There's no real wind. There's no real tornado threat. So I'm not worried about trees falling from that. Now, there's a possibility that, you know, if the ground gets very saturated from, you know, flooding heavy rains, if you get moving water, that could potentially down a tree. But no threat of trees down from winds or tornadoes. Sarah says, just some flooding here in Iberia Parish is what we are told. I'm close to Generette. That's right. Flooding is the only risk. Again, I'm going to say it over and over again. No wind threat, no tornado threat, no surge threat, just a flooding threat. That's the only risk with this disturbance. Kelly says, I'm at work in Abbeville and live in Scott. What's the weather going to be like when I head home? It's going to be wet. It's going to be raining. Yeah, I expect the rain to continue through the afternoon and evening. So yeah, it's probably going to be raining when you're heading home. Jeff says the current forecast for Vermilion and Lafayette is a crest of 8.2 feet. Do you agree? That is very, very difficult to forecast because, you know, we've got this storm that's getting ready to move through Lafayette right now. You see the radar there, and this very heavy rainfall is going to move through Lafayette. The Vermilion at Lafayette is a very quickly reacting river. So you're going to see a quick spike in that water running off into the river as soon as this storm gets in there. That is very, very difficult to predict, if not near impossible. So that's a best estimate. That's what that is, based on the estimated amount of rainfall we expect to fall. If it gets higher than that, then the river is going to go higher. So I would not hang my hat on that as what's going to happen. It's likely going to be higher or lower than that. If you see a lot of rain, it's going to be much higher than that. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's a forecast based on a forecast. It's a forecast for what the river is going to do based on the forecast of how much rain you're going to get. So if one of those is off, the other one's going to be off. And chances are how much rain we're going to see in that area exactly is going to be wrong. So chances are the river is going to be off by a certain amount. So it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. It's just a matter of the physics of it. Gunnar asks, are tornadoes a threat for St. Landry? No. Tornadoes are not a threat for anybody. Not in South Louisiana. Shelby says, outside of heavy rain, are we looking at power outages that could occur? I don't think so, because there's not going to be a wind risk. There's not going to be a tornado risk. Now, flooding, like I said, if moving floodwaters were to knock a tree onto a power line, which is pretty rare compared to wind, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. You may see a few isolated sporadic power outages, but I don't expect much in the way of power outages. Jeremy says, I sent you a friend request so I can get up-to-date info. Can you approve? I'm a genuine fan. I don't post weather stuff on my personal pages. In fact, I don't post hardly at all on my personal pages, so you're not going to get up-to-date weather information from that. The best place to do it is on the this page, the Weather Service Lake Charles's page. I'm not, to be completely honest, outside of this, I'm not a big fan of social media, so I don't post on there on my personal pages hardly at all. So you're not going to get any information out of me that way. All right, not seeing any more questions, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the time being. If you have a question that I missed for some reason, because it does happen, they fly up and off my screen regularly, or if you're viewing this as a recording and you have a question that way, feel free to send me a direct message on Facebook, our Weather Service Facebook, and I'll be happy to answer you that way. You can send us a message on X. You can send us a message on Instagram. You can send me an email. Email address is on the screen there in the bottom right-hand corner, donald.jones@noaa.gov. You can also give us a call here at our office. Phone number is also on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner, area code 337-477-5285. Again, this is going to be the last briefing we do with regards to this, at least the last scheduled one. We may do another one later on today or tomorrow if we're looking at significant flash flooding and I'm able to get on here to give you an update. But this is going to be the last scheduled one for this event. As we talked about briefly during the briefing, there is the possibility we could be looking at another low pressure area following a very similar track sometime by the middle of next week. So fingers crossed we're not, but we may be back on here in another week or so to talk about that one, depending on how that evolves. But in the meantime, everyone stay safe, stay weather aware for the next couple of days. Again, flooding is going to be the only issue. So it's easy to keep up with. It's either going to flood or it's not. You don't have to worry about wind. You don't have to worry about tornadoes. You don't have to worry about storm surge. It's just going to be the rain from now until Sunday evening. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay dry. It's going to be cooler, at least for a couple of days. Then it's going to get hot again next week. So we'll talk to you again, hopefully not too soon.